What if I told you you are living your dream life and that you're living your dream life because your focus has been on a life, maybe not your dream, but a life, and your brain is following through? See, that's how this works, you guys. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm never going to be able to have that kind of house or this kind of job or that kind of relationship because I have this kind of responsibility or this kind of barrier, this thing in my way, then your brain follows the barrier, the thing in your way, the problems that are not allowing you to attain those dreams become your reality. That's where your focus is. So, see, being careful where we place our attention is a very powerful tool in creating the dream life that we want. And it has been a powerful tool in bringing us into a life that isn't really working for us, maybe. Listen, if any of this sounds like something you would like to know a little bit more about, keep on listening. Welcome back. So, I have a outstanding podcast for you today. Outstanding. I get so excited about this because I don't know that people understand how very, very powerful their brain is. I mean, I know that we know, but do we really know? Because we tend to think that our brain is not creating our reality. Like, oh, sure, Dr. Natalie, I want to live on a beach someday. But do you hear that in my voice? Like that, there's no feeling behind that. I'm not believing that. You're not even believing what I just said, right? And when we do this to ourselves, we set up the barriers, we set up the problems, man, we are already blown out of the water as far as getting to our big dreams. And big dreams are what this whole series in May is all about. So make sure that you do click on the links in the notes or head over to learntoloveyourstory.com because my free gift for this month is a workbook on helping you get out of your own way and start living your dream. And that, my friends, is what we're going to keep talking about today. So what is this deal? What is this phenomena that, well, hey, I mean, we all have self-doubts, right? We all have these ideas that we'd like to, win the lottery or blah, blah, blah. And then we doubt ourselves. And so, well, if you're doubting yourself, you never show up and buy a lottery ticket. If you never show up and buy a lottery ticket, how likely is it you're going to win that lottery? Not very. Now, the lottery is not the kind of dreaming that I want you to have. I want you to be real about this. I want you to get down and dirty and really spell out for yourself what exactly it looks like. And that's really what this next step is all about. See, it's partially having something to focus on and partially then intentionally making that your focus. Okay, my friends. So those of you who are following me on YouTube have a nice quote in front of you, and it says, "We are living out our dream. The problem is that dream did not come from us. It came from others telling us what to dream." Now, that quote is mine. And I have that for all of us to really start believing and seeing that we are creating our reality already. Now, whether or not you're being intentional or unintentional about that is really what is of issue. So about 90 to 95% of what we do day to day comes out of our unconscious mind. It's an automatic, episodic memory of doing one task after another after another. Our body mind knows that if we had to pay attention to every small little step, how to balance on my foot and then under the next foot and then onto the next, how to listen for things, what we're listening to, how to put that toothbrush in my mouth, all the things. Like, I'm serious, you guys, we do a million things. We don't want to be thinking about all that. It would exhaust us to be thinking about all that. So instead of thinking about all that, our body mind puts it into this thing called our episodic memory. And so we just go through the process without thinking about it. It's unconscious. But here's the thing. If we're unintentionally allowing our unconscious mind to repeat old plans, to follow old maps, to use old habits, thinking it's going to get us in a new direction, we better think again because it's not going to work. If you're on autopilot 90 to 95% of the time, it's not going to take you in a new direction, not unless something really, really pulls its attention out of that. And for most of us, that's not going to happen. Now, midlife transition is a place where we start to pay attention a little bit more. We're a little bit more aware, a little bit more awake. Maybe we're in the 85 to 90% unconscious most of the time, but thinking the rest of the time because so much of our life is changing. And so we can't not see it. You can't not know that your marriage is on the rocks because you have been ignoring it for 25 years. You can't not know that that kid that started at your job 2 years ago is now making twice as much in salary as you. And I don't even think brings the same value to the company. You can't not know that your kids are in high school or maybe out of high school and maybe out of your house. And so your whole life wrapped around taking care of them is going to start looking a lot different. You can't not know these things, my friends. So here's what I want us to be thinking about as we listen today. What is it that my unconscious mind is driving me towards without my awareness? And is that the life I want to be living? Where did it come from? Who told me this was the life to be living? Do I agree with that? These are the kinds of questions that I want you to start to be thinking of, and that the free workbook that you can download off learntoloveyourstory.com will help to facilitate for you. So last week, we talked a lot about that next right thing principle, that we have a goal, a vision, something off in the distance that's our big dream that we're trying to work towards. And that if we're living our life in such a way that we're getting out of our own way, we're not letting, boundaries like I'm afraid of success or I'm afraid of failure get in our way and stop us from doing what we want to do. If we can get past all those things and we just look at the next right step in front of us, we start to kind of edge our way towards that dream. Now, here's how I want you to think about this, right? This is the way that our brain works. If we use a map, we already have drawn boundaries around where we can go and not go. And goals with plans to fill those goals are like maps. They're really handy. They do get us someplace. And honestly, if we've been doing it for a while, we stop even using the map because we just can do it on autopilot, right? It goes into that 90, 95%. But maps have a boundary around them. You cannot go off the map, right? You cannot create new territory you haven't seen yet. You can only go to the places you've already been. You can go there a different way. You can move around differently, but you can't go outside the boundaries of the map itself. Now, dreams have a different quality. They're more like working towards something that is uncharted territory, right? So if a dream is the uncharted territory we don't have a map for, what we really need is a compass. And our compass is our intention. We have to have a dream, right? And then we have to have intention about keeping our attention on that dream. Because if we don't intentionally focus on that pathway, our mind 90 to 95% of the time is going to go back into automatic mode and doing the things that it's always done. And it will just cycle and recycle through a bunch of different maps that it's always had. So now I want you to think about, what is this dream? Because you can't focus. You can't have an intention even to focus if you don't have an idea of what it is. And I don't want to hear abstract ideas like, I want to have financial freedom late in life. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I want to have a loving relationship where I feel valued. These are great ideas that are abstract and don't have any concrete ways of looking at them, ways of knowing that you've arrived at them. So setting up a dream is really about visualizing that dream. It's about putting things into practice that help you to really bring that to life. Not just once, not just twice, but literally day in and day out, bringing that vision to life and staying focused on it with your intention being your compass leading you towards that dream. Now, what I talked about last week about that next right step all fits in then. If you're looking towards the dream, holding your compass, what you have in this present moment is just the next right step in front of you that works towards that. And you don't need to necessarily know the terrain between you and that end destination when you're charting uncharted territory. You are trying to create a new map in your mind for sure, but you are not aware of what all the steps are. So all you need is that compass and to be looking straight in front of you. What is the next right thing to do? So there's 3 steps to this. And the first step is really about burning the old maps, burning the old rule books, making sure that you are painfully aware that you are the biggest barrier to your own dreams. So I want you to know that all those old maps, really useful, got you places, did things for you. Some of them you won't even want to throw away. All I really want you to start to do is to build your self-awareness that they're there at all. So if you are talking about the dream that you have, let's just say it's to have your dream job. You want to quit the job you're in that has a pension and the golden handcuffs, all 9 yards. But what you'd really like to do is become a flight attendant because you like to travel, right? And everybody in your life is telling you what a dumb idea that is. Internally, you have a lot of programming and conditioning telling you, that doesn't seem like a really great idea. You have no idea how you would afford things yet. And all you can think of is all the reasons why this won't work. And because your attention is on why it won't work, this is why it's not working, because that's all your brain is seeing. It's not seeing anything else that could be an option for how it would work. So if you want to burn the old rule book, you're going to burn this idea that the barriers hold water. You're going to listen to your barriers. You're going to hear them like, oh, I would need to make money. Oh, this doesn't sound like a really great idea if I can't pay my bills. Oh, what would people think of me if I, let go of this golden handcuffs and don't have a pension? And what would I do later in life? You're going to hear them, but you're not going to focus on them. Here's what you're going to do with them. Step 2 is to use those ideas of self-doubt and disbelief as a rumble strip. So instead of sticking in the barriers, you're going to be able to suspend your disbelief and doubt and use them as rumble strips on either side of the road towards setting your intention on that new dream. You're headed that direction, right? That's all you want to remember. So the doubts, they might be big, loud noises in your ear, but all they are indications that you might be bumping up against an old pattern, and the old pattern wants to take over. It wants you to automatically go back to what you know how to do, your old map. But you're going to use the compass and say, nope, due north is this way. But thank you for letting me know that I almost went off the side of the road. So you're using them more like cues or bumpers, essentially, to keep you on the path that you want to be on, instead of drifting off into a path that you don't want to be on. That's an old pattern, automatic thinking that no longer serves you. And then step 3 is really about setting the vision itself. And I mean detailed. I mean, you guys, you've got to get into, what does it look like? What does it feel like in my body when I'm in this dream place? If I have this new job, I feel good about myself. I'm traveling all the time. I'm seeing places I've never seen. Actually, I don't really need a big house. I only want a small apartment. That's something that I touch base with. And you keep going and you keep going and you keep making it more and more real. I mean, that what it tastes like, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, all of your senses, right? And in particular, making sure that positive feeling is behind it. So it's already happened. It's already your future. You are just responsible today for what the next step is in that pathway. And so future self would say what decision you make today is part of the whole process that got you to that dream future. But today's decision is just, I probably will downsize. Yeah, I think I'll be on my way to downsizing. And it might be a real small step in downsizing. I'm going to start with a garage sale and get rid of all of this extra stuff that I don't really need, that's just taking up space. Then I'm going to reassess how much stuff I really have and what kind of space could support that. It seems like a really small step just to do a garage sale. But if that ends up getting you to be a flight attendant traveling all over the world, and that's what you want to do, it's going to be one step closer. And you wouldn't have thought of that if you had been focused on the barrier of this won't make enough money, because that's where you would stop. Your brain will stop where you tell it to. So there's lots of different ways to do visualization. Sometimes people do vision boards. Sometimes people do little Pinterest, things and get together all the stuff that would go into it. Sometimes people write it out. Other people might even record it on audio and listen to it over and over and over. But whatever it is that you do, you need to be doing it on a regular basis. It can't be something that you just do once or twice. It's going to have to be something that you keep adding to and keep making more and more real. Now, I want you to think for a minute how much time you spend in your head in self-doubt. Just a minute. Keep thinking. It's a lot of time, isn't it? Like, for real, it's a lot of time. I wouldn't be in business if it wasn't a lot of time. I've heard people talk about their critical thinking of themselves for years. And I know it's like 80 to 90% of their day that they're doing this. Think of that number, 80 to 90%. What does it match? It matches this idea of the unconscious. So what has happened is we've gotten into the habit of self-doubt, and we've gotten into the habit of looking at the barriers instead of looking at what could work to help us towards these dreams. So what we're having to build in our visualization process is really the other skill sets. I want to build the capacity to keep turning my mind when I'm bored, when it's dull, when there's a lull in conversation, to my dream and not to my self-doubt. When I hear something that fits is in alignment with this new dream of mine, I want to hear in my mind, I wonder how I would fit that in with all the other parts that I have visualized and made very real for myself, instead of, oh, I bet that won't work because of this. Because what can happen with the self-doubt pattern, with our habit of just continually criticizing and, through barriers, pulling down any of our dreams, what can happen over time is that we compartmentalize all of that. We're not looking at it like a whole, but like parts. So what I mean by this is, like, we'll keep going back to this idea. What if in your second act you want to be a flight attendant? I mean, you do you want to travel? Great. So if you are cutting yourself down about that, you'll have a comment like, I'm not going to make enough money. Bam, that goes in one category, right? Then another time you'll think to yourself, yeah, what would I do with my house? Bam, that goes into another category. So the two are not touching. But when you're in a mindset that is looking towards what will fit into this dream and making it real, what you realize is that those two overlap. I don't make enough money. I can't support this household. But what if I changed the rules? What if I burned that book and said, I don't have to live in a 3,000 square foot house. I can live in a small apartment and be just fine late in life. I don't have kids I'm raising. I don't need to be throwing big parties. There's nothing about my life presently that needs that big house. But I never questioned that because I wasn't seeing that those two things were together. Sometimes the next right step that's just in front of us is to start to kind of bring all of this into a whole. And that is why visualizing it is such a powerful piece in the dream process. We're not having you put together a vision board and looking at it like The Secret, and like the next day you look outside and the car is outside. Like, it doesn't work exactly like that. But what it does create is cognitive bias. Our brain starts to look towards the things that will fulfill the dream and kind of starts to ignore the things that are barriers. Now, it takes time to get to that level. And that's why I have step 2 being that we'll use our self doubt as kind of a rumble strip on the side of the highway. We don't want to go over that rumble strip and into the ditch. So we will notice it, but we won't attend to it, right? Because again, it's about where you place the attention. If the attention is on what is being said in those barriers and self critical thinking, that's what will manifest. But if the thinking attention is focused more down the road on what the dream is and what it's going to look like and how it's going to look that way, and maybe how it even pivoted and developed a little bit differently now that I started thinking about one of these bumper barriers over here, you start to see that come into focus. And in between you and that dream, what comes into focus is, oh, that little step right there would be another step on the way to this dream. Things start to create opportunity in your present day life. I mean, they were there. All of this is here, but we can't pay attention to everything all at the same time. Our brain doesn't have that capacity. So what you have to do is train your brain to start looking at those things. All right. So we have our steps in place. We're going to burn the books. We're going to use the rumble strip of self-doubt, and we are going to visualize, and we are going to really dial that in. We're going to download Dr. Natalie's workbook, and we're going to start to make a picture for ourselves, an entire scene of what it looks like to be in our dream life that we're designing down the road. And next, we're going to have to start to remind ourselves of that on a daily basis. So here's some ideas. The vision board is always a great one because it's tangible. It hangs someplace that you're looking at it all the time. I tend to like things that are actually attached to our devices, however, because let's be real. Not a lot of us are in our office looking at our vision boards, but we probably look at our phone far too many times a day. And if you do the little tracker to see how many minutes that you're looking at your screen, it will make you cringe. Let's take that and use it to our advantage, though. How about you pin to your wallpaper on your phone some, picture or words or something that reminds you of your dream? Make sure that it's something that, like, boom, brings it to mind right away. It's hard, small screen, but you can, you've got this. I know you've got this. You can be creative. So something like that can be really, really useful. Another thing that I've heard people do, sounds a little corny, but hey, it's the time of year for it. Take that idea of your dream, write it all down, and bury it in the ground, and go back and visit that place on a regular basis. So, possibly put it someplace right outside your door, possibly put it, under a tree, under a plant, something like that. And what you're really doing is you're creating a routine of making yourself come back and do this thing of visualizing over and over and over. Another version of that, if you don't want to bury things in the ground, is to put it in a box or a container. Write it all down. Maybe write it on several little Post-its and just pile all of what the dream is into that container. And then every single day, go back to that container. Maybe pull a few of those things out. Think about it for a while. All of these things you can hear are just about creating the routine of the visualizing process. So whatever works for you, do it and keep doing it. When it doesn't work for you, let it go. Move on and find a different way, right? Now, all of these things are going to take one skill that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is self-awareness. Not that I haven't mentioned awareness, but the skill of self-awareness is actually something that is neurologically a muscle in our brain. There is this place called the medial prefrontal cortex. I've talked about it before on the podcast, on videos, everywhere. If you've listened to me about the medial prefrontal cortex, here's its little superpower. It is this part of our brain that does this thing of being able to focus on what we tell it to focus on. It's the conduit between that emotional part of our brain and the thinking part of our brain. So not only is it helping us to focus, it is tying together what is emotionally relevant and important to us to what we're thinking about. So we want to build up this muscle. And the way to do that is through mindfulness and meditation practices. Just sitting in contemplation, thinking about one thing, noticing one thing for a period of time, anywhere between honestly 1 and 15 minutes. And do it a few times a day if you can, whatever works for you. But start it somewhere. Start somewhere, making a habit of building this mindfulness practice, because it will help you to build that part of your brain. If you need any help with this, I actually have 4 meditations for free guided on my website, learntoloveyourstory.com. And I'll link to my video on why mindfulness is important and how to start a mindfulness practice. I give you a lot of little tips on how to do that. Now, some of you will see that if you've got one of my gift bags, you'll have a lot of the stuff in it that you need. If you're looking to have a gift bag, you should really be joining my free group coaching, because for everybody that shows up to the group coaching event, I will send you a mug and a little meditation kit. And it's really nice. We've got our skill of mindfulness that's building up our capacity for self-awareness, and our 3 steps. We're going to burn the books for the old rules. We're going to use self-doubt as the rails or the rumble strips on the side of our road as we focus straight down towards our goal, towards our dream, that big dream we want. And we're going to visualize that as our 3rd step, and really not just visualize, but put into action over and over and over, practicing that dream or visualization in our head. There is no way that you will not be on your journey towards manifesting that dream if you are doing all of those things. I promise you. If you fall off the wagon a little, if the self-doubts start to get to you, just get right back up as soon as you notice that and do those 3 steps over again for yourself. Stay on that path. You're building actually a new habit that also will be in your unconscious mind of how to bring things to manifestation. But the truth of the matter is that it all hinges on where you're placing your attention. Whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, you have your attention somewhere. And I want you to start to train your brain to focus on the things that you're wanting to create in your life, instead of on the things that you think are getting in the way of creating that in your life. And that, my friends, is how you will learn to love your story. All right. So I'm adding a little addition here. It's the legal stuff. Just so you're aware, nothing in any of these podcasts constitutes actual psychotherapy. Yes, I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, but everything here is just educational in nature and is a suggestion of things that you could be doing in your own life to learn how to love the life that you're in, instead of waiting for a life that you're dreaming of to come towards you. So just remember, this is not therapy. And if ever you need any resources for mental health, look in my notes, and I'll always have a little blurb at the bottom where you can click on a link and get those services for yourself.